but you broke my heart. I'm going back.
So that was beautiful.
Oh, do you know what? It's been great because you've actually made us go down memory lane and really think and consider. We've come a long way. Yeah.
How did we meet you guys? I mean, it was a blessing. And when we got here, we were looking for a Pan-African school. And we couldn't find one for love nor money. But someone came up and said, have you heard about Destination Africa? Destination who? What? Now, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but people on our channel always hear us reference Destination Africa. They will see shorts from you guys, but you're here. Tell us about Destination Africa.
And you know, it's funny because Ghana Bound has actually made quite an impact on us as well. So this is monumental. We are making history. Yeah.
How did it start? I think for us, it started in the UK. It started when, when we got married, or even before, we were speaking about children, about how we like to raise our children, and so on. And one thing for us, I think I didn't speak our mother tongue when we were younger, and Abner did. And one thing that struck me was the connection she had with her mother, and just with Ghanaian culture, living in the UK. So I remember we said, once the children were born, the children must speak one of our mother tongues. And then fast forward a few years, got married. First one was on the way. My tree was still 20%. And then I said, I need to up my game. So then I started learning tree. I said I came and we were teaching him and trying to make it fun and everything. And we were struggling for resources. Like there were no resources in tree which were video oriented. All I had was books from the Legon University or bookstores. And I thought that isn't going to entice or prove to a child that, my culture and make him excited. So I started creating a resource for him, like filming his brothers and sisters, singing Cheche Kule, doing different things. And that really made, it sparked an interest in him. And from there, we fast forwarded, he could speak tree, he could read it, write it. And people would ask us, like, how did you teach your child to speak tree living in the UK? At this point, he'd never been to Ghana. I remember one time he was on a bus with my mum and they were speaking tree together. And the lady turned around and said in tree, like, when did he come to the UK? And she was like, he's never been to Ghana. Wow. And it sort of blew her mind. And people just kept on asking us. So we said, you know what, let's do some stuff for the community. Let's put on workshops so that people can learn about African culture, African language, the continent of Africa, because it's funny that most African children don't know how many African countries there are on the continent. And I say, Africa belongs to you. It's the future. But if you guys don't know it's there, how can you make the most of it? And from there, Destination Africa was born. And we put on workshops for children, for families to empower them so that one, they can enjoy that parenting journey, and two, they can ground their children in the foundation that, I'm black, I'm proud. And once you have that foundation, you could take on the world and go anywhere.
To add to what you said, when we had children, that's when we really identified the issue of identity and how much we lacked it, self-identity. We'd look around us and we'd see all the other ethnicities. On a Saturday, they'd be going to their language schools and their cultural schools, Bangladeshi schools, Sri Lankan schools, Chinese schools. And there wasn't a child you would meet that didn't speak Mandarin or didn't speak, absolutely. And our children, I think, our children even compromise before they start speaking because by default they're given a foreign name. And so they have to identify almost by something that's foreign to where they're from, and their true identity is kept in the house. Oh, your house name. And then, you have your Christian name, which is most of the time nothing but a foreign name. So children start to form a different identity of themselves, and they understand already, even before somebody has tried to explain who they are to them, that, I've got to sort of compromise myself a little bit before I can be myself. But then you realize that other people have figured out that if you don't know where you've been, how do you know where you're going? Right. So, that would like immediately eradicate all of the complaints that we have when we're older, and our leaders are now doing this properly, and because we've taken on a foreign identity by speaking a different language and superimposing somebody else's ideals and systems on ourselves and culture. You know, our children grow up and they're so compromised.
Yeah.
They're compromised. They don't know how to celebrate themselves. They don't know how to value themselves. They don't know how to just be, you know, when they're out there. So they've got this split personality. Oh, when I'm with these people, I have to be like this. When I'm with these people, I have to be like that. And of course, when somebody else notices it that doesn't look like you, they already know they've got the upper hand.
Yeah.
So, you know, we had enough of the complaining, and we thought, what are we going to do about it? Because in essence, everybody else complains, but how are we actually going to make the shift? How are we making the change? And it was one thing implementing that in our child, but then we also recognized that he was going to grow up and be part of another community where he would need that trust, that support. They say it takes a village to raise a child. So this is where we thought, okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. So when we started, we didn't know how it was going to go. We didn't know how it was going to move along. And actually, I remember a Turkish guy brought his child, and his children were 5 and 3, and they spoke fluent Turkish, a little bit of English. And we asked him, why are you bringing your children to the classes? And he said, oh, because my son, which was a 5-year-old, his oldest, has expressed interest in doing business in Africa when he's older.
Wow.
Sis. Wow.
Forward
Planning, like the
intentional
foresight,
living.
Absolutely. And I think for us as a people, this is what really saddens me, because we're still in that space. I think the majority of us in a space where we're almost waiting for somebody to decide what our future is going to look like, when we have the power, we have it in our hands, and we have to be teaching our children. If we're going to leave any legacy, is that you have the power to make the change in your hands.
Take the action.
That's it.
Don't pray for it to
Absolutely.
happen. Take the action.
That's it. Create it. Become impactful. Invent it with whatever resources you have. You can do. In our classes, we teach the language, we teach the culture, but it's also a lot to do with character building. You know, your social awareness, your emotional awareness, how you're going to be able to walk into a room and just make an impression, make a difference. All of these things are taught when children are very, very young. So we do a lot of public speaking, we do a lot of critical thinking, confidence building, and we allow children to just challenge themselves in a safe space. So children sometimes come in, and their parents will tell us, oh, this one, he's very shy, and we're always like, it's fine, you just leave them to me. And by class 4, that's that same child that's going, Auntie Abna, you don't do like this is how you do. So it's all of that. And you realize that even you as an adult are developing, it's synergy. Yeah.
It's two-part, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, in order to empower the children, the parents need to be empowered. The child can only dream and do as much as the person or the teacher behind empowers them to do. So it's about the parent coming along the journey alongside their child to enjoy that journey as they transition, as they change, as they metamorphosize into that butterfly. So it's we have something for.
Oh, you definitely do. I mean, we've taken our two through at least 2 terms of Destination Africa, and
it's been an honor having you.
Oh, it's been amazing. And just watching how you guys do things I'm like, hey, so they don't let the parents get away with nothing.
I noticed that.
But it makes total sense, because when you say children learn from what they see more than what they hear, if you've come and you're serious about this, learner of today, building a leader of tomorrow, you need to show, hey, I'm nervous. You've never seen daddy jumping around, chair, cool, but I'm out of my comfort zone. Daddy's doing it, mummy's doing it. Maybe next week I'll do it.
And that's the thing, it's funny, because nowadays, like, entrepreneurship, generational wealth is now a bit of a buzzword. Everyone wants to do it and so on. But the thing is, if you are not an entrepreneur, if you don't come from generational wealth, there's a high chance it's not going to happen. Yeah. And you need to put yourself in a place that would allow you to do that. I can give you information, say, hey, here's a manual. There's videos on YouTube and all sorts people can find. But it takes another level. It takes a commitment to it. It takes a commitment to sharing that with your children from a young age. So their paradigm starts to shift from being this to being that, or to being this, or to be whatever they want it to be. So that's what we try to do at Destination Africa, open people's paradigms to firstly who they are, and also to areas of change. I remember we were talking about Bitcoin the other day. I was like, every child should have a Bitcoin or cryptocurrency education from the simplest one. You need to know what it is, because this technology isn't going anywhere. And in so many spheres, and that's where we like to build that holistic approach.
I've got you, and I'm with you. And it's like real home economics, you know, actually understanding money, actually understanding the monetary system, how it works, what is this thing, and you guys have hit that on that nail on the head.
Yeah, and I think fundamentally there are things that you need your maths when you go to school. You need your geography, maybe to find your bearings, but there are core things, you know, human psychology, financial literacy, how to administer CPR, knowing about how to apply for a mortgage, knowing about debt, knowing about
Saturday school.
This is Saturday school, yeah, Saturday school. And so like we all learn, and we teach in the language as well. And then we teach the etymology of what we're studying. So you really understand why our ancestors gave certain words to certain things, like sika. We've been saying sika for years. But then when we did the etymology, we realized it was si, like to stop debt. Ka is debt.
Ah,
Yeah,
I never knew that.
yeah.
Stop debt.
Stop debt.
It's sika.
It's sika.
It wasn't at that session, that was me.
That was you.
Okay, that was Daddy. He
I
got
was
all
not
the
at that
spoils.
session.
Oh, sis. Well, you're at the session now.
Yes.
Yeah. Or like ejapadie, which is eja is your father, and pe adie is to look for something valuable for you to put away. So ejapadie is your heritage, your inheritance. Yeah.
Write in the comments if you knew that, guys.
Yeah.
Write in a bit about sika. I want to know who else knew.
Oh yeah, it's so true. Yeah. In the comments, guys.
World's changed now, and you know we're very much doing the physical classes and things, but I know as well that there are people that can't physically attend. So what's happening with that?
Okay, so we, like you say, we live in a global village, and once the children have identified, like, we need a solid foundation in our culture, heritage, all of that, we also appreciate that the children have to be part of this global village. So we have formulated these sessions in an online digital package so that, other people around the world can enjoy. And we're also incorporating different things into our activities. So things that you wouldn't necessarily find your average African child, can do. Anything from like studying mechanics on father-son days to decorating cupcakes and things like that.
Having a pack that I would say that you need before you get to Ghana. Destination Africa is part of that, emergency kits that you put together and you're using before you've even stepped on the motherland. Because even if you end up staying where you are, the things that you're getting, you'll move forward.
Because even I remember when we were researching, or we're doing the researching for the courses, we look at it and we say to ourselves, we wish we were taught this when we were younger, in such a fun, understanding way. But we have it now, and it's never too late. In our house, it's every day is a school day.
Every day is a school day.
So
again, with these packages, we have some short courses to teach the children some of the essential things. Sometimes they don't learn in school, but in a fun way and an intuitive way, African focus, that will definitely hit the point home. So we have a financial literacy course coming to teach the children about money, the history of money, what we used before money as Africans, all the way up to loans, working in cooperatives, and so much more.
Self-defense,
We have self-defense classes, because it's important to teach your children how to prepare. Don't wait until someone's holding your shirt collar, but how to be aware of your surroundings and to avoid potential situations.
Definitely. And I have to say, we did not leave the parents out, because ultimately we do want to empower the children. But parenting is something that, especially as an African, nobody prepares you for. There's no manual for it. There's nobody to go and speak to about it.
Truth.
You're suffering in silence.
You're suffering in silence, and you're made to pretend you have it all together. You can't call on your brother and say, "Hey, Charlie, I'm really suffering with this one," or "This one's character is really challenging me." So it's something that you have to do intentionally and purposefully. But where are you even getting your direction?
Right.
This is it.
How did you find out parents needed this, that there was a gap for this?
We had surveys and we had hundreds of
Wow.
The feedback was amazing, and that was it for us. You know, the question was, what are we doing to move forward? How are we breaking the cycle? How are we changing the status quo paralysis? And that was it. So we formulated a YouTube channel based on just parenting, you know, how to teach your child about critical thinking, how to teach your children confidence, battling with peer pressure. And we go through everything systematically. So the causes, the problem, the solution. And then we've also got resources that you can also find on the website, where you have the children fill out questionnaires. So yeah, the children can fill out questionnaires, and the questionnaires are based on, like, say if it's how confident are you, or how to teach confidence. There'll be a question on there. What do you feel like when you look at yourself in the mirror? A, I feel great because I know I was born for greatness. B, sometimes I need somebody to validate it for me. C, such, D, such.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we collate everything at the end, and we then give you that direction. If all your answers were A, then you have a very confident child. Continue doing what you're doing. Although your child is very confident, you don't want them to be overly confident and entitled. So here's how to have a balance. If they were mainly Bs, such. So it then formulates a conversation. There's engagement. People don't feel as vulnerable anymore. You realize we're all the same, going through the same thing.
So what's the website again?
The website is thedestinationafrica.com, and the YouTube channel is Destination Africa Group TV. Yeah.
You know, and you said something which went back to a question that Sam asked earlier about migrating back to Africa. And one thing I realized was the language, the focus or the lack thereof from many people planning on returning. To touch on my story, I started to speak Cree when I was 30 years old. I learned it when I was 30. And to cut a long story short, my family knew me before. I always come back on holidays and could mix it up a little bit. But when I could speak the language fluently, my own blood family were like, oh, hey, Nicole. And I said, Okatrio. And they embraced me in a way in which they didn't before. Even though we're from the same blood, even though we're from the same hometown. And I can only urge people to let your children know their language and their identity. If you're from the diaspora and you can't pinpoint where your family's from, pick one. You have a choice. You can pick what part of Africa you want to be from. Learn the language. If you're from South Africa, learn Zulu or whatever language. If you're from Zimbabwe, Shona, Indibele, whatever language it may be, enrich yourself. You know, I say right now we're speaking in English, and imagine English is almost like a paint, like a red color. And as we're speaking, red is going back and forth, and we're enjoying what red is. But imagine if I then speak in Tree, and Tree is yellow, and I'm speaking Tree. You guys are speaking back in yellow, then we can mix the two and we'll make a beautiful orange.
Yeah.
And without language, you never fully understand the culture. You never fully understand the people, and you'll never be fully accepted. So it's my urge to anybody planning on moving back, raising your children at home or in a diaspora, teach your mother tongue.
Yes, I have to agree with that. You know, I think it was Nelson Mandela who once said, if you speak to a man in a language that's foreign to him, you speak to his mind. But if you speak to him in his mother tongue, you speak to his heart. And I have to really implore parents, listen, this is something we have to do. And in the classes, we don't just include the parents because we all want to have fun. But parents literally are children's heroes. It's as simple as that. You know, like when we were younger, we were in the UK, and you could fit in with the latest trend. It was cool. But something Michael said just really hit me. Echo. I'm making a conscious effort to call you Echo these days. Yeah, it really hit me because when you're accepted by your friends, that's fine. Your friends, they come and go. You know, that will always change. But those aren't your grassroots. When you feel that inclusion within your family space, that's different. And what brings that about is the language. It's like you felt a distance from your parents. A lot of us felt that distance because they would speak in one language and then they would speak English to you, and you'd be like, yeah, like, why am I not a part? Yeah,
we had that experience. Who else had that experience? Write it in the comments.
Guys, you were there, don't lie, you were there. So yeah, that is why we thought, you know what, these things have to be done. Like, it's paramount. If you want your child to do something, they have to see you doing it. Whether you look silly, whether they're going to laugh at you or not, they have to see you doing it. So if you're not so good with the language, start doing it with them. If you're not so good, at whatever it is you're learning, blockchain or whatever, start doing it with them. It makes such a difference. I mean, just going by the fact that we are, as parents, are our children's heroes. I watched an interview recently and they asked a famous celebrity, how are you taking your responsibility seriously as role models as a role model to children? And he said, you know what, if your children need, a role model in me, then you just never should have been born.
Yeah,
and I get it. Yeah, I get it. And the thing is, fundamentally, we as parents are. So we can joke with them, yeah, Auntie Abna is cool when they come to the classes and whatnot. But listen, when they see Mami Yaba doing the cheche kule, it takes them. Yeah.
But you need to have the tools and the environment, and primarily your parents, absorbed in that space for you as a springboard to do so. So we try to create those resources and space in the community to do that.
Yeah. And funny enough, talking about language, our son recently, he came home and he had a bit of an experience. He said he saw a group of children and he just wanted to reach out to them in the language. And guys, you can shoot me for this one. I'm going to be the fall guy. But one thing we really have to stop doing as a people is superimposing our other foreign languages and cultures over our own. Like, it is destroying our children. I think you both said something about us being the last generation of where all of this stops. Like, if we don't start to teach our children, implement it, continue it, keep it consistent, the language and the culture is
That's
gone.
right.
Yeah, the grassroots are gone. And so I suggested he went up to these children and he was like, "What is saying?" And the little boy looked up at him and he was like, "What are you saying?" And he was like, "Oh, okay, maybe he doesn't speak Tree. Let me ask him how he is in Ghana." So he says, "Oh, te o te." And he goes, "What are you saying?" So I was like, "Okay, let me ask him in Ewe." So he goes, "F1, what are you saying?" So he's like, "Ah." Then he looks up at him again. He's like, "You are not speaking English." So he says, "Okay, how are you?" He goes, "What are you saying?" And so he then says, "How are you?" And then he says, "I am fine." But it's just such a big, oh my goodness.
But this
It's
is
so
happening
evident.
here.
It's happening here where people do not want to even give the children their
The
mother
language
tongue.
and you're living in the country.
This is it. It's by right, by default, your inheritance. This is your heritage. And we don't want to give it to our children. And, what I think we don't also realize is indirectly, you're telling your children that you as an adult, you don't matter. You play second fiddle to somebody else. So if they see you as an adult and they see, say, an English person, they've been taught indirectly to respect the English person more than there's a hierarchy and it's scary. So all along in their lives as they grow up, they've accepted when I grow up, I'm going to be second class too. I'm second class now.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd be so interested. In fact, I might even ask you guys, like, what are some of the reasons why you may not have carried on passing your own language? Because I know you guys are from all over the world. What barriers have come across? It'd be really interesting to find out why it's happening too.
Circumstance, you don't have somebody to speak the language with, so you can pass it on to your children. You even feel there's a confidence that it takes to just say,
Yes.
even if you're going to laugh at me,
And that's what I like about your classes.
Yeah.
Because as a parent, I've learned a lot of the language from your classes.
Right.
And I'm there trying to encourage my child, but really I'm there for myself.
Yeah.
But you don't laugh.
Yeah.
And the children don't laugh at each other. There's a
Yeah.
real community of village. Let's rise up
Yeah.
together and
Yeah.
supporting each other.
Yeah.
And it creates a safe space to make mistakes with the language
Yeah.
and then to practice it.
Yeah.
And I really love how you guys do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
bless you.
Question: what were your individual childhood? What's the question I'm asking? Experience of Ghana and the Ghanaian language. What was going on in your household? What was going on in your household?
Sure, that's a really good question, actually, because I think it's what's made us arrive at where we are today. My mum used to speak the language to me all the time, to the point where I actually took it for granted. So I could go to school, speak Chi and whatnot, speak English, sorry, and I would come home and we could just switch just like that. So I had a real connection with my aunties, a real connection with my uncles that I didn't realize was something it was a real value, and I didn't even have an appreciation for when people used to say, oh, I can understand it, but I can't speak it. I used to just think people were putting it on until, we then started to teach the language and then realized that you even use different parts of your brain to speak it than you do to understand it, read it, write it, and all sorts. So that was fundamentally our background. Now, Mike saw that and he didn't want that to stop.
In my household, both the parents were Fanti. So similar to Chi, but a bit different. And in our household, my parents spoke Fanti, but they weren't conscious in us replying back. So they would speak Fanti and we would reply back in English. So over the years, we could understand the basic context of Fanti in the house, like tidy up your room, do this, go and do this for me, do this, grab this. But there were more commands than conversation. So if it came to me, if I had to describe my day, I couldn't do it Fanti. But if you told me to turn the fire off or cook some rice or go buy I can understand you. But the problem for me was conversating. I felt almost like a child because you go to spaces and other than the greeting and how are you, blah, 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 I can't speak unless I go to English. So I just felt like, okay, for a long time, I'll just have to sit there quietly, smile. How you can laugh when they say something, but I couldn't input into a conversation. That felt almost very debilitating.
Yeah.
Until I started to learn to speak, I thought, you can really express yourself. That people can actually understand. Because before you'll try and they'll look at you and they'll say yes. And you're like, I didn't answer the question.
When I first came to Ghana, I'd made a decision. Allow them to laugh because it will come.
Yeah.
And then I will ask them, so how do I say it properly? After they finish laughing and rolling around on the floor, they then say, oh, okay, let me teach her. And that's how I started to overcoming that trauma of being laughed at.
Mine was the opposite. I just said, you know what? Don't laugh at me. I tell you, don't laugh at me playing because I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
And when you speak your English, I can laugh at you if you want, but I don't do that.
Right.
So don't laugh at me. I'm here to learn. And if you laugh, I'm going to learn. My mind is made up.
Correct.
So there's nothing that you can. And then that sort of holds into account.
Yeah.
So how was your experience with Ghana as children? Did you come back a lot, or was what was it?
I was born in the UK, lived there till I was 3, and then came here from 3 till almost 9. And then you were born.
Well, you came about 2 and left when I was about 6.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So from 9 till I think in my 20s, I used to come every other summer. Yeah. So it was. That also helped, like keep in touch with
you
it.
used to have the bags that were overweight.
Hey, the Ghana must go bags. Yes, and they'll be spilling it on the floor.
On the floor. Oh, Charlie.
Mine was once in a while, so once every 4 or 5 years. So not many trips back, but there was always a connection with the family in some shape or form.
So for you said earlier that it was a done deal. You're coming back to Ghana in your adult life. Was it the same for you?
No, he forced me to come back, didn't you?
By force.
Hey,
Yeah, by
force.
fire, by force. Yeah.
I can see the resistance still, you know.
Yeah, can you see it? Yeah. Okay, so what it was it was an ultimatum. Okay, so we met. I met this fine young boy, and we were set. Like our marriage was gonna be great, all sorts. Even before we got to proposal, he was like, "My friend, if you don't want to come to Ghana, I'm not marrying you." Yes, that was the ultimatum.
It's really interesting because you had more interaction with Ghana as a child than Accra did.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, my moment, so this is what I call my awakening moment. So in 2003, I came to Ghana with a good friend of mine at the time, Jamaican, never been to Africa before, so I felt like I was his tour guide. We used to have this joke that we go into Africa. So we came, we stayed in Accra, we went from different places. We had a lot of fun, young men fun. It was our time to travel and discover. And on one trip, we went up to my hometown. So I was like, oh, this is my hometown. This is, if the world goes wrong for me, I can claim a bed in this house, this family house, and I can build myself from there. So when we went, my cousins came around, like, oh, he's come from Free Abroche, and so on. So we were there talking, and my friend was there. I was like, what are they saying? So I was there with my broken fancy, trying to piece together, probably 50% of the conversation, translating in my head to English, telling him the conversation was going on. So he got the gist of the conversation, and that was probably about it. And it got to a point where they said something that was quite funny. And as I said before, like, I couldn't speak it properly. I knew it wouldn't sound right if I responded. So I was thinking in my head, like, do I say it in Fanti, but I know it won't sound right? Do I say it in English, but they will speak in Fanti, or do I just say nothing and just sit there as I normally do because I can't communicate the way I want? I said, you know what? It's a voyage of discovery. I need to speak up. So I said it in English, and the joke died. It went off the cliff like that. It just went straight down. It was like the oblivion.
Yeah.
And one of my cousins looked around and said to me, Nyankana de Mawa Ho, which is like, we don't speak English here. And that cut like a knife. It felt like someone had disemboweled me. Because up until that point in my mind, speaking Fanti was just there to do housework and, sit in there, listen to conversations.
Instructions.
Instructions, just to make sure that no one's ripping you off, the taxi guy. I just act like I speak English and I can understand what's going on. But the other side of it, the flip side, being able to communicate, being able to understand the culture, being able to express yourself fully hadn't come into it at that point. There was no value in it for me at that point. And it was that point I got the awakening. I realized I'm not fully accepted in the UK because, when they look at you, okay, you're black, you can speak English, you're educated to a certain extent. But someone asks you where you're from, I don't say I'm from South London.
They don't mean from Bethnal Green, do they?
No.
Yeah. And they'll say, no, where are you from? And I know where I'm from, but at the same time, I come home and my cousin is telling me, you're kind of the Mawa Ho. So you feel like you're,
outside again.
You're not here and you're not there. And I thought, I need to be here. This is where I'm from, so I need to go and find it.
So that was it. And on the flip side, I'm just going to keep it real. I was one of those conditioned ones. And I think that's sometimes where as a people, we need to be very conscious about what we say around our children. Because I could speak and understand the language. I remember aunties and uncles seeing something like a Concord on TV and it would be, hey, Kwesi Bronindia, Oyadio, or like, Sasistano. That means, the European man has invented this plane. Meanwhile, you don't even know who invented the plane, but you've already put it in my mind. Oh, to aspire to become somebody, I have to go somewhere else to be someone. Or, you would hear things like, oh, to become someone, you have to study in the UK. You have to study. So I was there at the time and I was thinking, I don't need to go anywhere else. Like, we have arrived. There's nothing in Africa. There's nothing in Ghana. And I remember when we came on one trip, 2007, when I just said out there that, I could see the country was thriving. It was booming. The economy had changed. And there were foreigners doing fantastic things in the country. I was thinking, hey, maybe they're onto something and this is my homeland. And maybe if I don't come back in time, then we will be outpriced, outsourced, out everything.
Yep.
What are we doing about this? And so I had to just bow down and accept that this is our direction. This is where we are going. Interesting is when you come over here and you just have that culture shock because you think you're coming back home, everybody's going to be really proud of their culture. But even right down to the younger ones, you meet, a young person, 6, 7 years old, and you're saying to them, what's your name? And they're like, oh, my name is Patience. And you're like, what's your Ghanaian name? And they're like, and you're like, say your Ghanaian name louder. And they're like, at that age, they're so embarrassed about who they are on a Ghanaian plane or on an African plane. Something has been done there already to condition them into believing that they're not valuable enough as an African. So yeah, that has to change. It really has to change.
So guys, what did you think of that? If you haven't done so already, hit that like button, share it with a friend, and the most important one, hit that subscribe button in 3, 2, 1. Ray, welcome to the family, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.